point is B2B market segmentation. Market again, the ability to purchase and willingness to buy, right? That defines whether that is a potential market for me, right? That might be like think about Tesla when they're deciding whether they'll enter Indian market or not. If you look into population, 1.2 billion people here, 120 crores or 130 crores around. But how many of them will afford electric cars, or how many of them interested in electric cars, right? So that is the big question. Tesla will be doing survey. Tesla will be asking different customers. Then only they will launch in India, right? Obviously, there are other parameters are there, taxes and like kind of how much benefits they get here, setting up manufacturing plants and all those things. But obviously, that is one question they have to ask first: whether there is a customer base here, whether there is a market here, right? Once they know the market, right, now they will divide into different segments, right? And how that segmentation is done. So if you see, so look at the right side of the screen, right? There is something called MECE, right? And this concept will be utilized in many cases, right? Mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, MECE. This is a framework. Whenever you carry out a segmentation, right, for any market, you have to remember two segments, or whether it is 2 or 5 or 10 segments you are creating, right? Both has to be mutually exclusive. That means there won't be any intersection between those segments. So there won't be any commonalities between those segments. So that is the meaning of mutually exclusive. One segment, so one person or one company cannot lie in both the segments, or 3 segments or 4 segments. So if one company or one person or one customer belongs to segment 1, he or she or that company belongs to segment 1. They cannot be parallelly part of segment 2 or segment 3, right? That is where mutually exclusive. That means segmenting variables, whichever segmenting variables you take, will divide the market into so many segments, whether it is 2, 3, 5, that is again we have to decide, in such a way that there is no commonality, there is no intersection between those kind of groups. Think about age. If I take age as a variable, right, and I want to understand something related online education, or let's say as a company, Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or let's say Cisco, they want to understand kind of how much Zoom usage is happening from students, and they take age as a segmenting variable. So when they define the groups, they can define the groups maybe from those engineering students, they might be joining the college at 15 or 16 years old, 15 to 20, then from 21 to whatever, 25 or 26. It should not be like that. 15 to 20 is one group, then 18 to 25 is one group, or 18 to 24 is one group. So in that case, what happens? Those students who are in the group of 18, 19, 20, they will belong to both the segments, right? If I create a student group, say that, okay, 15 to 20 is one group, then 18 to 23 or 24 is another group. So those few students who belong to, or in the age group of 18, 19, 20, they will belong to both the segments, right? So that should not happen. So that is the meaning of mutually exclusive. Segmenting variable will divide the market into segment in such a way that there is no commonality, there is no intersection between different segments. Next one is collectively exhaustive. That means I should go till the last point. That means all the individuals in the market should be covered in my segment. I might not target. So nobody is telling you once you create 10 segments, you have to target them. That is not the point. So STP process, if you remember, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So segmentation has to happen for all the segments. So I cannot say that, okay, I'll do only for the segmentation. If I want to enter India market, I'll say only I'll do the segmentation for Delhi. That is not a viable segmentation. If let's say for an automobile manufacturer or fashion brand or any big company, right, want to enter Indian market, they'll tell that, okay, let's do a survey in Delhi or Mumbai and do the segmentation and go ahead with it. It should not happen. It should not be ideal state, right? So if I want to enter Indian market, Then I have to say segment depending upon whatever segmenting variable I choose. Whole Indian market. Obviously, out of that, I will select 10 segment. I did targeted, or sorry, I divided the market into 10 segments. Out of those 10 segments, I selected 2 segments for targeting, right? That can be done. Nobody is telling you to target all the segments. So that is the meaning of collectively adjusted. That means your segmenting variable should be so detailed that all the consumers, all the companies, if it is a B2B, all the companies are covered under that, right? It should not be that major person. Obviously, there will be certain like 1% or 2% misses. I cannot get the details of every individual, all the companies, but my segmenting variable should be in such a way that almost everybody is covered in that when I'm carrying out those segmentation, right? So segmenting, any segmentation happens, whether it is B2C, business to customer, or business to business, right? The definition of segmenting variable should be in such a way that mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. This framework is known as MECE, MES framework, right? Then definition of market segmentation, dividing the market into meaningful, relatively similar and identifiable segments or groups, right? So let us try to understand. The definitions are simple, but let us try to understand why it is there. Meaningful. Meaningful to whom? Meaningful to a company, right? Whether I'm a B2C company or B2B company, it makes sense to me, right? Then relatively similar. That segment, those individuals, those companies obviously need to be same, need to be similar. Then only they belong to one segment. Like I said, if I'm taking age as a segmenting variable, then I believe that those age group from 15 to 20, they have similar attitude, similar lifestyle, and 20 to 25 belong to another age group. They have a different lifestyle, different attitude, different value systems, right? If both have same thing, everything same, then I should create a group of 15 to 25, right? So that is the meaning of relatively similar. So that segment, whichever you are creating, should have similar identity, similar attitude, or whichever segment, similar age, right? Then identifiable, right? So once I decided, okay, these are the segment, right? I should be able, because next step is remember target. If I cannot identify, I have created such a complex segmenting variable, right? So let's say if I take a segmenting variable such that, okay, how many calorie intake somebody is taking on an average, that is not a correct segmenting variable. I cannot identify people with that because that information is available to me. Let's say you want to carry out a health startup, right? And you want to segment people with how much calorie intake on an average they're taking in a month, right? Very few people actually carry out those calculations, right? Most of the people, or like people like me and you, I do not think that we have that calculation. Okay, how much calories we are consuming per day, per month, or per week, right? But if that startup has taken that variable, they cannot identify people with that, right? With that segmenting variable. So that is that choice you have to make. Whether by using that segmenting variable, I can choose, I can identify segments, I can identify people, I can identify company, right? So that is the meaning of meaningful, relatively similar, and identifiable segments or groups, right? Any questions on these definitions? Now let us try to understand how the business market segmentation is being done, right? There are two actually. There is a process, or there are few steps associated with it. We'll come back to that later on. But let us try to understand what does being written here, right? Macro segmentation and micro segmentation, right? So whatever we have discussed so far in B2C, geographic, demographic, uh, behavioral, and psychographic, right? Not all of them, but few of them gets combined and get associated here, right? So what do I mean by that? Initially, whenever, because see, segmentation is costly, right? Doing a market survey or getting that information from different companies, right? You have to pay certain money, you have to spend certain amount of money. For that, you have to first understand how much money you can spend in segmentation or getting that data, which will help you in segmenting different companies. See, B2B means we want to segment different companies, different industry, different sectors, so that we'll be able to target those particular companies in a better way, right? Let us try to understand through an example. Lot of discussions are happening on the electronic vehicles, right? Now what will happen? Excite right now, I think that company has announced that they are going to put a big plant in India, gigafactory on this producing lithium ion batteries, right? I think yesterday or today that news came. So now they have to, let's say they are obviously they have been in India for so many years, but let's say they want to carry out this research. They want to understand who are the customers whom they should target for these electronics batteries, right? And how will they go about it? So they are not talking about the individual customers like you and me, companies, right? How they should segment. So that first level of segmentation, which is at a very higher level, right, is known as macro segmentation. So what do you mean by macro segmentation? Where we take certain variables which are maybe economic, based on economics, based on region, based on political scenario, right? So those kind of outside exogenous factors, right, based on which we are segmenting the market. Market basically the industry, right? Here it is not the consumers or customers. Here these are companies, institutions, right, whom they are going to sell those electronic batteries for whatever the lithium-ion batteries, right? Then the next step is, in case it is required, they can utilize something called micro-segmentation. Micro-segmentation is when they get into the details of each company, right? So details of each company to the extent that who are the purchase managers, what is their age, what is their attitude, right? So into that kind of detail, imagine getting those details, how much cost or how much effort you have to put. But in some cases, you have to do that. So macro segmentation is a higher level segmentation, right? It might be at an organizational, industry, sector, geographic basis. Micro is at a detail or deeper level where you get into each organization specific details, right? So let us try to understand through certain segmentation variables. Different macro segmentation variables. If you can see that here something is written as geographic location. If you remember in B2C, there is something called geographic segmentation. It is the same here. Excite battery, they want to kind of carry out a segmentation study for selling those lithium ion batteries. They can first go ahead with the size of the organization, right? In India, there is something called micro, small, medium organization, right? Or if you go by the share market, small caps, large caps, mid caps, right? Or the blue chip stocks, right? Or blue chip companies, right? Either way you go, right? Size of the market, you can define. So size can be on the sales, how much sales they make, yearly revenue, or maybe the number of employees, or maybe any other factor, right? Which defines the how big that company is, how many products they sell, how many businesses they have. That might define the size of the company also, right? So size can be one macro segmentation variable, right? So let's say Excite industry, they decide we'll define companies into three segments. Any company having annual revenue less than 500 crores, 500 to 5,000 crores, more than 5,000 crores, right? Let's say there are three segments, and that the company has to decide what should be that number. So they decide on that two parameters, up to 500 crores, then up to 500 to 5,000 crores for any company having more than 5,000 crores revenue or sales, right? So on that basis, they can do a size-based segmentation, that variable they are using, right? Again, before deciding on segmenting variable, you have to know that it is mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, right? Segmenting variables should not overlap with each other. Second is that it is covering all the companies in India, right? Obviously, if I say that some companies within 500 crores of revenue, 500 to 5,000 crores, and greater than 5,000 crores. Any company in India who will fall under any of the categories, right? Or it can be geographic also, which is very easy, right? I can get the list of the companies, their head offices, and find out that whatever geographic regions I decide. Let's say I decide 5 geographic regions: north, east, south, west, and center. There are 5 locations, 5 geographies, and some companies in western part of India, eastern part of India, northern part of India. That also can be a one segmenting variable, right? Usage rate, right? That is again a how much utilization of the, so usage rate means what? How much product, how much services they are using of that category, right? Now they have to be very specific. If they are wanting to use usage rate as a variable, right? So they have to understand each company, how many of, like, let's say Maruti, Honda, Hyundai, or whichever automobile companies are there, right? Or Hero Honda, or whichever any kind of automobile company, small, big, new, like Ola has launched their electric scooters, right? What is their estimated number of like kind of battery usage, right? So can anybody tell me how will they get this data if they want to segment the market? Because see, size is easy. They can go to, like kind of, if they want the revenue, they can get the data from any website, right? On the financial website. Number of employees also, most of the times they can get from their website, right? It need not be very exact, but at least a estimated, like kind of number they can get. Geographical location also they can get, again from their individual websites, the company website, they can get the head office data, right? Now comes the usage rate. Think about in this way: Exide India want to sell these lithium-ion batteries, and they want to understand, or they want to divide the market based on usage rate. How will they get this usage rate data?
So for a particular organization only.
Hello.
I'm asking, sir, for only a particular organization, like Exide want to sell his batteries to suppose Maruti Suzuki, Maruti. So for only the Maruti organization, Exide wants to find out how much usage rate will be.
Yes, because
okay, so for that, sir, I think with research they can go by how much car they are selling, and taking upon that as a percentage of the manufacturing, they can calculate how much car they are producing per year. Based upon that, they can tell that it will be the usage rate.
good. So that is something known as guesstimate. When we will do the, like kind of class exercise in the next class,
Yes, sir.
Market estimation. So this is something known as guesstimate. See, nobody will have the correct idea, because most of the car companies right now, they are planning to launch electronic cars, right? Most of them are not into the, like, final like kind of assembly line, right? So now what you will do, you have to carry out that guesstimate. Currently Maruti, how much cars they are selling, Hyundai, how many cars, Tata, how many cars in India, and take a valid percentage of that number. Maybe 3 years down the line, 5% of them will be electric cars, right? Then, and that obviously that 5, whether you will take 3%, 5%, 10%, there that management decision experience comes into picture, right? Because obviously all the information will not be known, right? So that is one way to carry out the guesstimate, to understand what should be the usage rate of this lithium ion batteries, right? Because just imagine, because Maruti do not have their current at this point of time, they do not have a electric car on market, right? They might launch next year. So for that you are defining. So now if you have got the data of 10 car companies or 15 car companies in India, then you can divide into different segments. Non-user, those companies which do not plan to have electric cars in next 3 years. Light users, who will have might be 2% or 3% of the cars as electric cars. Moderate user and heavy users, those companies which, like kind of product portfolio, will have more than 10% or 20% as electric cars. They are the heavy users, right? So that is how you can define usage rate, right? And divide the market, divide the automobile companies into 2, 3, or 4 segments, right? That is how usage rate can be utilized. Structure of procurement, right? Whether the procurement is centralized and decentralized, right? Whether each manufacturing plant will make that decision or company head office makes that decision, right? For that, again, your Salesforce intelligence will be required. Nowhere in their website, nowhere in the balance sheet it will be written that whether purchase process they follow centralized or decentralized. So there, your existing Salesforce who are in the field, because they have been there for last 5 years or 10 years, right? So they will know. Yes, generally for Maruti, head office takes the decision. Or for let's say Toyota, each manufacturing plant, or Hyundai, each manufacturing plant take their own decision, right? So there, that if you remember, we discussed something called centralized and decentralized. Whether decentralized means each location of the company, each office of the company are taking their own decisions regarding purchase, obviously. Centralized means for any purchase decisions, it comes from the head office, right? So that can be also one variable, right? Then a few others, product or service application. There is something called SIC. It is basically industry classification, right? Similarly, NAICS, North America Industry Classification System. In India, if you remember, we discussed about something called micro, small, and medium enterprises. There are actually specific industry codes associated with somebody, agriculture industry, food processing industry, manufacturing industry. Under manufacturing, again, there are different segments. Which kind of manufacturing you are in, component manufacturing or like kind of fasteners manufacturing. There are again 18 or 19 segments under that, right? So there is a industry code book which defines for each industry sector, for each company, which kind of industry or sector they belong to, right? I can utilize that, right? In this particular case, I might not, because this is a I want to sell this lithium ion batteries to automobile companies. So my target segment is mostly automobile companies. So I need not get into again details, right? But in some cases, it might be useful, right? If you are using, let's say, some component which will be utilized across different industries. Let's say you are a software manufacturer. You want to sell these ERP systems. ERP system can be utilized across different industries, right? It need not be only IT companies or education. So now you can utilize that segmentation. Those companies who are into manufacturing, those companies who are into services, those companies who are into food processing, right? You can utilize those codes to divide into different segments. End market served varies by product or service, right? Whom they are serving, who are their end customers, right? So Maruti is serving which type of customers? Tata, or let's say Mercedes, whichever companies, or Tata's, again Jaguar, Land Rover, who are their end market, right? For each of them, end market will be different, right? So are you going to utilize that, right? Then value in use. Using this, whatever product you are trying to sell, how much value it carry for the company? Imagine in this way, if I'm selling lithium ion batteries, that is a big, very big component, which is very have a high value in an electric car, because that is the kind of a life of a car, like engine. If I'm selling engines to automobile companies, engine is a very big value in a car, right? That is almost 25% or 30% of the car's value, right? So that is what the high and low. But if I'm selling, let's say, the kind of car seats, or let's say uh, small components, fasteners, or let's say the paint. Paint is also a big component in car, right? That might not have a huge value. It is still required. Automobile companies will still procure that, but it will have a low value, right? But think about this way: if it is an electric car, lithium-ion battery or whichever battery new technology is coming has a huge use of that in that sector or in that industry, right? So whichever product or services you are selling, how much value that holds for the customer, for the company whom you are selling, right? Then characteristics of a purchasing situation. If you remember, we have discussed this: new task, modified rebuy, straight rebuy, right? Obviously, in this particular case, for most of the companies who do not have electric cars in market, right, it will be a new task, right? They will be purchasing this kind of lithium ion batteries for the first time. But for a automobile company who are already in market with electric cars, it might be a modified rebuy. They might be importing batteries from like Germany or USA. Right now, if there is a production facility in India, then they can procure from here. But they are already buying electric batteries, these lithium ion batteries, right? But for somebody like Maruti or some other company who are just venturing into electric cars, that will be a new task, right? First time they are purchasing. Then stage in purchase decision processes, right? At what stage have they decided who the vendor is going to be? Or they are in the very beginning, they are designing the car, they are in the process of defining what are the specifications, right? So that is something, again, you have to have certain market intelligence, your sales force, right? Connections in the companies will be able to provide you those details, right? So these are the few examples of macro segmentation, right? Macro or a higher level segmentation, right? For any B2B segmentation, we first proceed it. Again, it is not that you have to use all the segmenting variables. You have to decide out of all the segmenting variables, which are the few segmenting variable you will be using, right? One or two, right? And based upon that, you carry out the segmentation process, right? Once you carry out the segmentation process, let's say I take, for an example, I take this geography as one my like kind of segmenting variables, and I divide it. Three companies in northern part of India, they're manufacturing plants. Two companies in eastern part of India, five companies in southern part of India, and then six companies in, or six manufacturing plant in western part of India, right? In central, let's say there are no manufacturing plant, right? And that is how I decided. Is it helpful for me by doing this segmentation? Now can I jump into the targeting those companies? If yes, I do not have to do any more type of segmentation. I can direct decide on. Then how to decide, we'll talk about that. Then I can just jump into targeting those which are much more preferable, much more profitable, right? If I decide that I have a plant in western part of India, so it will be easier for me to provide those batteries. I'll save in taxation, inter-tax transportation. So let me first target those vehicle manufacturers who have manufacturing plant in western part of India. So these 3 or 5 automobile manufacturers. Then later on, I'll have a discussion with other locations. So that can be as simple as that, right? I carried out a geographic based segmentation. Then I jumped into, because I am putting my plant near Mumbai or Pune, it will be easier for me to target those vehicle manufacturers who have their plant in Pune, right? Then I need not have to do any more segmentation. That's it. But let's say whatever segmenting variable I have utilized, it is not solving my problem. Still there are doubts, right? Let's say these laptop manufacturers, they are selling their product to different universities, right? Different universities, schools or colleges, right? So how they will go about the segmentation? Let's say they decided in geography. So there are around 912 universities in India, private, public, right, deemed to be university, all combined, there are 912, around 900, let's say, right? So once they do geography based, right, and they understand 200, 300, 200, 150, like that, there is a division of number of universities across different geographies. Now what? Is it solving my problem? If I understand that there are 200 universities in northern part of India and 300 in eastern part of India, or 100 in eastern part of India, is it solving my problem? By knowing that data, can I now jump into targeting those segments? Maybe no, because it just says that okay, there are 100 universities, but how many students they have, what is their actual requirement, how many of them are technical universities, what is their annual requirement? I should have those kind of details, right? If those are again requirement, then I'll look into other segmenting variables. Maybe some of them macro, looking into size, number of students they have, whether they have a technical like university or a non-technical university, because the laptop configuration will vary, laptop requirement will also vary, right? Whether actually they provide the laptops to students or not, or student have to buy on them on their own, right? So in those kind of situations, right, first you take one of the segmenting variable which you think will be useful, carry out the market segmentation, then decide whether I have to utilize any more segmenting variable, right? Because getting those data, like I said, you have to go to, like, maybe you have to appoint certain market research agencies or some market research consultants who will charge you, right? That's why doing this kind of, getting this kind of data is costly, right? So you have to decide beforehand how much detailed segmentation you need to carry out, right? In this case of automobile, might be region based will be best for me, geographic location wise, because I know that I have a plant in western part of India. I'll only target western market, right? And I'll go ahead with that. But when I'm selling laptops, knowing there are, let's say, 50 universities or 100 universities in eastern part of India, then I should ask them how many students each university has, what is their laptop requirement, what is the purchase process, right? So those are the few additional things I should ask myself, right? And that is where your micro segmentation will come into picture. Each organization wise, when you ask those details, right? So if you divide the line like different segmenting variable, anything above organization, right? So organization is the line. Once you get into organization specific details, right? Think about in this way, how do they decide on the suppliers, what kind of criteria they take? Let's say these kind of public universities in Odisha, let's say this Utkal or FM, all those public universities, because they are basically government universities, state universities, right? For them, important cost will be one of the biggest parameter, right? Because government will be providing limited budget and they have to follow certain processes, right? So lowest cost will be one of the important criteria, right? And it applies to most of the government agencies, right? So they always have a cost in mind, right? They cannot go beyond that. The estimate cost, it is very difficult to go beyond that. Private universities, because they are deciding the cost, they are have the fund budget, right? So they can be much more like quality delivery, that can be much more like important criteria for them. Obviously cost will be always an important criteria, but so that is the differences will come, right? On what basis they decide? If I decide like in eastern part of India, there are 50 or 70 universities. How many of them are public universities? How many of them are private universities or deemed to be universities, right? Based upon that, I can understand that, okay, what is their like kind of on which basis they decide on vendor, or on which basis they select the vendors, right? Purchasing strategies, optimizer or satisfier, right? Do they want everything optimized? They want the best product with lowest cost, with best delivery terms, best payment terms, and most of the government like agencies want that. Government or public sector companies, if you like kind of sell any product to them, they want everything with the lowest cost or satisficer. That means they want the best product. They are like kind of at one category, they want the best, like, so they might kind of negotiate on cost. They may be able to provide you better price if you are able to provide them the best quality product, or they might provide you advance in payment terms in case you are able to provide them the certain discount, right? So in that case it can be satisfied. It is not that they want everything perfect, right? Satisfied means one or two category, they, you need to meet the criteria. Optimizer means all the criteria you have to meet. Most of the government companies are like that. Structure of decision making unit, right? Who decides? If it is a government company, government municipalities, most of the times it will be secretary, as like kind of principal secretary or state secretary, whoever is the like decision making authority, right? Private companies, maybe the region manager or the zonal manager might be able to take the decision, right? Who makes those purchasing decisions? See, all these variable which is listed here is very organization specific. Each company specific details you have to get, and it is very difficult to get. Just imagine, let's say you are selling these laptops, and there are 900 universities. Do you think that for each university you will be able to get these details? Even not each university. Let's say you tell that, okay, I'll start with the northern part of India, so I'll start segmenting northern part of India. Let's say there are 100 universities there. Even getting this any one category, obviously you will not get for all of them. Key criteria on what basis they decide on vendor. Getting the detail of 100 universities is very difficult. It is not publicly available. The details which you saw in macro segmentation, most of the details are publicly available. Most of them, not all of them, most of them are publicly available. But here, whatever is mentioned in micro is not publicly available data. You have to be in the field. Your salesperson need to go to those universities, go to those locations to build network to get this kind of data, right? So micro segmentation is very difficult. And most of the companies actually do not do this. Most of the time they just stop at macro segmentation if it is very much required. Like I just give the example of laptop. It will be required there, but not maybe not in the battery, like when I'm selling battery to automobile company, right? Because each of the data, if you want to collect the information, you need to put an effort, which is again you have to spend money for that, right? Importance of purchase, high importance or low importance, right? So this is one thing which, if you remember, was there also in the macro segmentation, value in use. If you remember, there was something called value in use, high or low. It is almost similar to that. Almost similar to that. How much important this product is for the university or for the organization, right? Attitude towards vendor, favorable or unfavorable, right? This is again an interesting factor. Most of the companies, right, again depending upon country, right, they do not go beyond their existing supplier database, right? So let's say for the product they have existing database of suppliers of 10 or 12 companies, because see, getting a supplier, getting these details, putting in the database takes time, right? So if you are a new vendor, it becomes very challenging to sell a product. If you are already registered with that company, it becomes easy. If you are not registered, the purchasing manager generally do not want to spend much time in like kind of registering a new vendor unless it is very much required, right? For the laptop, let's say there are already registered vendors with KIT University. If you are a new company, right, university might not be favorable towards you. Favorable in the sense of because it takes time, right? You have to provide documentation, they have to verify it, then they'll register your name in the company database, right? So that is again something you have to understand whether the company is favorable to new vendors or not. Because most of the times companies go by the existing vendors. Organizational innovativeness, innovator or follower. Again, like if you think about the automobile, like kind of we try to sell lithium-ion batteries, this factor will be very much important. They might not have a electric car today, but if the organizational leader, the new CEO or the new managing director is very visionary, he or she wants to kind of do something very innovative, right? Then it is the right time to target the company. They might not have any, but they might have a very low market share. But if the CEO or MD is very visionary, they want to do certain changes in their company strategy, right? They are very innovative, right? So for me, if I'm selling lithium-ion batteries, that will be one of the big factor. Who is the CEO of the company and do they believe in the like kind of future of electric cars or not? If not, even if it is Maruti, you have a large market share, they need not be actual my target segment, because CEO will always say that no, right now will not implement or invest in electric cars, right? That should be one of the key criteria deciding whom should I target. Then if you remember, we discussed something called psychographic and behavioral in B2C. Here, if you see, everything is there, including the demographic. Now the question is, we are talking about companies, businesses, then what is this? Personal characteristics. Because we are trying to segment companies, institutions, whether it is a public company, private company, or universities, right? So we are trying to segment, divide into different segments. Then where does this personal characteristics like demographic, decision style comes into picture? Anyone?
Sir, these might be the personal characteristics of the influencers or like who are employed in the dealing with us. So maybe studying them or their personal characteristics will help us in the B2B transaction.
Correct. So this is something known, if you remember, we talked about the buying center. There is something called purchasing group or buying center, right? Not necessarily influencer. Influencer obviously is one part of buying center. There is something called initiator, gatekeeper, user, right? So those are the roles different members play in buying center. So basically imagine in this way, every company has a group of people, purchasing group, or that is better known as buying center or decision making unit, right? It can be a larger group of 25 to 30 people, or can be a smaller group of 4 to 5 people who basically decide what will be bought for their company. Any new product, services, or existing product or services, anything being purchased or procured for the company, that group decides, right? So those group of individuals, right? So now when we are talking about the segmentation and micro segmentation, we are getting into their characteristics. What is the age group? Who are the people? What is their age group? Which region they belongs to? See the detail we require. Do you think that these details will be available in the website or balance it? No. You need to have those salesperson who have a network, who have continuously in touch with them, and you will create something called customer persona. When you get into the how B2B sales work, we'll discuss something called customer persona, and you might have discussed in your digital marketing course also, right? Basically, for each of those buyer, right? If I know that these CEOs make those decisions, what is their CEOs likes and dislikes, what kind of newspaper they read, what kind of social media they visit. So look into the market intelligence goes to make these kind of sales. You have to understand each of them. Let's say I want to sell something to Maruti, and my target market is Maruti, Honda, or Hyundai, those 3 or 4 companies. I should have the details of all those purchasing managers, finance managers who are going to decide on these kind of purchases, which age group they belongs to, what is their educational background. I'll go through the LinkedIn pages. That is one of the biggest source for me. I'll list down those details. Are they foreign educated or Indian educated? Indian educated from which universities? If from some universities, if they might be certain alumni, right, from my college, right? So in that case, networking will be easy. I can get the connections, right? Which location they belong to? They might be in certain Facebook groups, which is common to all of us, both of us, right? So that is how you have to be intelligent, right, to carry out those kind of search. Decision style, normative, conservative, mixed mode. Normative means you go with the norms, which is standard in a company, you follow that. Or conservative, very traditional, or mixed mode, right? So which kind of decision style they follow? Again, it cannot be found in a LinkedIn page and all those things. Again, you might have to have some internal resource inside company who will provide you that kind of intelligence. Then imagine why we are requiring that, because when you go and make a sales pitch, you remember our end goal is we'll get those connections, we'll go with our company's product, company service, and we are going to make a sales pitch in front of them, right? Then what should be in that sales pitch? How should I convince them, right? To help me prepare those presentations, right? These kind of details are required. Risk taker or risk avoider, right? Whether they will have the faith in a new company, or they will avoid that kind of situation. They always go with the traditional companies, the bigger names, bigger brand companies. They will never believe in a startup, right? Confidence, high or low. If it is a high confidence individuals, right, then you have to talk in that assertive tone, right? If it is a low confidence individuals, how to like kind of at least convince him or her to buy your product or service, right? Job responsibility, which department they belong. Obviously, again, that can be like kind of that information you can get from LinkedIn or social media site, whether they're from finance, marketing, HR, legal, right? So these part, personal characteristics, everything is again about individuals. So there, if you remember something called behavioral or psychographic, which was there in, and demographics, which was there in your B2C segmentation, right? Again, that will be useful here. But I'm not doing it for a single individual. I'm doing it for a group of individuals who belong to one company. So I have to create, when I'm creating customer persona, I'm not doing it for single individual. I'm creating customer persona for those 5 or 6 individuals or 10 individuals. If it is a bigger group, 25 to 30, again, it will be impossible for me to get all the details. Out of 25, 30, I'll find out that who are the 2 or 3 individuals who are much more influential. Maybe the CEO or MD or the purchasing director or marketing director, right? I'll get their details. I'll create their customer persona. Then I know that, okay, this person is like this. He is a traditional person. He doesn't like lot of he is very number oriented. He doesn't like all this marketing sales story. He is very specific. Now, when I'm going making a sales pitch, my slides should be in a such a way that it is talking about numbers. If you use my product or use my services, these are the benefit your company is going to get, right? So that is how it. Those are the information which will help me to make a sales pitch. Again, but like I said, getting these details is very time consuming. You have to put a lot of effort. So first you have to decide whether I need that kind of details. If without those details I still can make a sales, please go ahead with it. But if it is not possible, then yes, you have to put that effort. So that is why it takes a lot of time to gather this market intelligence, which will help you to make a proper sales, right? So macro segmentation, which are high-end variables, which stops at an organization level, anything specific to organization, which is internal data, right? Which you cannot get access from publicly available information, publicly available sites, right? Documents. Those are, most of them are fall under this micro segmentation, right? So B2B segmentation are basically macro and micro. Geographic one, which we discussed in B2C, falls under macro. Other three, demographics, psychographics, behavioral, all three will fall under micro segmentation. Again, whom we are, like when I talk about that micro segmentation, personal characteristics is for those individuals who are part of that buying center or purchasing group. Obviously not for, so I'm not going to discuss on the demographics of a company. I'm looking at demographics of those purchase managers, marketing directors who are going to decide, right? So these are the different micro segmentation variables. Any questions on this? Either in macro or micro.
Sir, like one more variable of segmentation that I have seen recently is the level of technological acceptance. So, what like किसके अंदर वो आएगा, macro के अंदर या micro के अंदर?
Most of the times it is basically available in your balance sheet, right? Sorry, not balance sheet, in the investor presentation, like how the company is progressing and what are the new technology they have kind of incorporated, right? So it will follow under, I believe that is a good criteria actually, technology acceptance or how innovativeness they are. So that will fall under macro. So that you can get from the,
yes. So like there is a solution that is like can be used by many businesses across like the industry. So we have to research about it, like what specific firms in the industry are like more potential, have the more potential to use them in the initial phase. So yeah.
Yes. So again, like one of the challenge of getting that data, if it is available on the investor presentation, because most of the times when they annual report of a company goes out, right? So there will be 2-3 pages discussing about futures of the company, different technologies they're looking into, right? If you can get those details from those websites, those kind of annual reports, right? Then you can still carry out this kind of segmentation without getting into micro part, right? But again, like some companies actually do not publish those kind of details. Most of the public companies do. Some companies hide actually what kind of technology they are going to use. If you look into the FMCG companies, right, they actually show that what kind of technology they are using, what kind of I was reading the HUL's annual presentation. So they and some of you might get into HUL website and read about that annual presentation. They have a very detailed mentioned what kind of technology they are going to use. Actually, they are using this random forest model or machine intelligence for different kind of customer segmentation, and that is there in their annual report. So, but again, depends upon the company. Any more questions on this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So approach to segmentation, like I said, you start with a macro segmentation because that data is easily available, right? Select a set of acceptable macro segment based on the corporate objective and resources. Resources, why? Because if you want have lot of resources, lot of money to spend, then you can get into micro, right? Because imagine that getting that data from LinkedIn, other resources, field work, like kind of collating them, accordingly making your sales pitch. It takes it is not a single one-man job, right? You need that many marketing or sales people to carry out those kind of tasks, right? Single person will go mad doing all those kind of things. Evaluate each selected segment. So once you have, let's say, for the laptop vendor, right? They want to sell these laptops to different universities, right? Once, let's say, I take the geographic as one segmenting variable, right? And I decide that, okay, northern part of, I'll first look into northern part of India. There are, let's say, 80 or 100 universities. Once I find out that information, is it going to help me to target? If not, so that is where that evaluation happens. Evaluate each selected segment. Does this segment exhibit a distinct response to our firm's marketing program? Right, that question you have to ask yourself. If I know that there are 80 universities in northern part of India, do they have that? Remember, that is what this segment means, right? They have a similar characteristics, right, which is identifiable, right, easily identifiable, and they have a similar characteristics. Do those 80 or 70 universities have a similar criteria? If yes, then I should stop there. If not, then if yes, go ahead and stop there, right? That is it. But I know that obviously that is not true. 80 universities in northern part of India do not have the same kind of buying characteristics or buying behavior, right? Then I have to jump into the next micro segmentation, right? What kind of additional variable I'll be using? I can utilize their innovativeness. I can utilize their size, number of students, or I can utilize that who are the vice chancellors or co-vice chancellors and how, like kind of whether they're interested to buy this kind of laptops for their students, right? So those kind of details I should get into, right? If no, identify within each macro segment the relevant micro segments based on the key decision making unit characteristics. So northern part of India, there are 8 universities. What kind of micro segmentation criteria I should use? Shall I use that public, private, or shall I use that, okay, number of students, or shall I use that purchasing personal characteristics? So I look into those vice chancellors or pro vice chancellors who are foreign educated or who are from India or who are basically kind of a PhD from outside or who have a PhD from inside. That can be again one criteria if it like kind of solves my problem. Select the desired target microsegment again, like, and cost benefit associated with reaching the segment, right? Identify the complete profile of the segment based on macro level and micro level. So you have to, in each case, you have to use either you go ahead with macro level segmentation if it is solving your problem by, so when I say solving your problem, by utilizing those macro segmentation, can I target, can I sell my product to those universities? If it is working, you should stop there. If not, go again next round. Go little bit deeper. Look into the micro segmentation. For each university, collect the data. How the decisions is being made. Who are making those decisions? What are those personal characteristics? Create those profiles. Then try to carry out. Try to group them. Right. Few universities who are very traditional, they will not look into new companies. So they'll get into this traditional segment, right? Follower type. Some are innovators. Some new universities who has come up, they're putting a lot of money. They need the best in class, everything for their student. They will be innovators, right? So you can decide that micro level segmentation. So those 70 or 80 universities in northern part of India can be divided into 30 traditional universities, 40 innovators, or 50 innovators. Now, because you are a new company in market, your target segment may be those 50 innovators, right? Not those 30 traditional universities, right? So that is how segmentation done, then the targeting happens, right? Any questions on these steps?
So that means, sir, we don't have to do micro segmenting for all the situation. If we
Yes.
found our desired situation in macro segmenting only, then we can go for it.
Yes, true.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Because getting the organization specific details is costly. All these information what we talk about micro segmentation, right, will not be publicly available, will not be available in the annual presentation websites, right? So that is something you need to be in the field. Your sales force need to be in the field, have that network, connect with people to get this kind of data. Some of the information you might get from LinkedIn and all those channels, but most of the information you have to have that physical presence. You have to go and collect this kind of information. Yes, so you are correct. Most of the times we don't get into micro. We get into micro if only it is required, because it is a time consuming and effort taking, right? So we start with the easier variables generally. We start with geography, sometimes language, right? If you get into Europe, right, each country has different language. If you do your sales force do not have a language proficiency in French or German language proficiency, you cannot sell your product in Germany and France, right? So each country in Europe. So if you're like kind of targeting countries in Europe, so that is something you should be aware of. Your sales force marketing team should be, and sometimes hiring happens in that. So actually, one thing I can always suggest: try to learn certain foreign languages, right? Not as a hobby, not as an interest. Sometimes later on in your life, if like some of you get into this and uh, get into this sales profile and proceed with that, right? Later in your career, to get those kind of assignment, foreign assignment, those foreign language proficiency is a must. And that time you might be 30, after 6 or 7 or 8 years will be 30. Learning a new language will be very difficult. Believe me, I tried, I could not do it. So if you want to like learn, try to learn at least some basics, and that actually becomes, no matter how good or bad salesperson you have, sometimes knowing a language makes a difference. If you know French and your company have a sales force in France, it will be very easy to have that kind of outside India assignment, right? Again, it builds career. If you have a outside India assignment, lot many opportunities, lot many growth prospects comes into picture. So that is something I can advise you. If you all of you at least should have a basic, any language you can get into, French, German, it doesn't matter. Pharmographic size of the company's products made, again that is easier. Most of the times you'll get from the website or the annual report details. Then the path becomes very difficult, right? Behavioral based, right? Knowing the company specific details, price sensitive, whether they're price sensitive or not, delivery sensitive. Some companies have a very fixed rules or regulations regarding delivery. They will not allow any delay in delivery. Like let's say Toyota, they have just in time. Delivery has to happen because the order will come last shift. So you cannot say that, okay, your order might be late by 1 day or 6 hours. So if they have a just-in-time implementation, you might not be able to sell your product to them because their assembly line is just-in-time based. Even they are like getting into electric cars. So those battery companies who have manufacturing plant nearby them within 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers, then only they can sell the product. Otherwise, it is not possible, right? Quality sensitive. Few foreign companies like GE, Philips, they are very quality. So you have to do a lot of third-party testing, third-party certifications as a company to be eligible to participate in the tender, to be eligible to participate in the bid. So as a new vendor, it will be very difficult. Then needs, security, power estimate, all these what we discussed, personal characteristics of those buying group, those individuals who are going to make those decisions, right? Getting these details again becomes very difficult, hard to copy by the computer. But if you are able to get these details, right, you'll be able to make a sales pitch which is better than competition, because this data, geography data, size of the company, product made, all this information is publicly available. It is available to your competitor also. But if you are able to get this kind of behavioral or need, whatever you discuss in the micro segmentation details, right? So you'll be able to target your customer in a better way, right? Think about in this, so there are two laptop vendor manufacturers, right? One laptop manufacturer put a lot of time effort collecting those details of 80 universities. Now they realize those traditional universities will never buy our product. Let us focus on those 50 universities. See, all their effort is on those 50 or 40 universities, right? Other competitor did not do that micro segmentation. They just go with the same sales pitch to those 80 universities. Both of them have the same sales force. See the effort they have wasted on those 30 or 40 universities, right? So that is something, if you have carried out that kind of homework, that kind of field assignment, getting those details, micro level segmentation, right? Your competitor will have a challenge to better you in your sales pitch, right? But again, it is difficult, like I said, time consuming. You have to put a lot of effort. So that you have to decide in the beginning. Do you really need to put that kind of effort in the beginning itself, right? So any doubt on that earlier slide what we discussed, road to segmentation? This is a continuation of our last slide, different steps in segmentation. Now how to decide on target segment. Now I have, let's say, these 10 segments in India, or 5 segments or 3 segments. Obviously, I do not have money. I do not have manpower to cater to needs of all those segments, right? So who should be my target segments? Again, these are few factors, not necessarily all are covered, but these are the few factors which are considered. Relative attractiveness. So what do you mean attractiveness for me, right? How much profit, how much sales I'm going to make, right? Think about in this way, if I'm selling battery, right, Maruti should be one of my big vendor, big customer, right? Because they are almost 50 to 60% of India's car market, right? More than 1.5 lakh cars they're selling in a year, right? So if I take a 5%, even 2% of that segment, that still is a big number for me. So that will define me the relative attractiveness. Which customers, which companies, which businesses have a larger market share and provide me that kind of revenue. Responsiveness, whatever market program or whatever sales strategy I have, whether that segment will respond to it, right? It is very, like I said, if my segmenting variable is public, private, small scale industry, medium scale industry, micro scale industry, right? Out of that small scale industry, much of this time they do not have the revenue or sales to cater to new technology, new innovative products. So they might not respond to my sales, they might not respond to my marketing strategy, right? So that is where the responsiveness comes to picture, whether the customers or the organizations or the companies will respond to our sales strategy, right? Competencies, right? What kind of competencies I have, right? So like I said, if you are a startup and you are launching a product in foreign market, having those competencies, your sales force should be competent enough to talk in those foreign languages, right? ITC, Infosys, all those IT companies who have kind of a huge, around 20 to 25% of their market share comes from Europe market. Most of the times when they hire those sales manager, one of the big competencies is language competency, right? As a sales manager, you might not know the coding part. You just have to understand how those programs work and what is their end goal. And you should be able to understand the business requirement. But language proficiency comes into picture. Sometimes because B2B is technical in nature, sometimes technical proficiency will be required. If you are selling something called, like let's say this batteries, it is not that you are going to design a new battery, but how actually lithium ion battery works, why it is better than the other products, right? Similarly, let's say if you join GE or Philips, they sell many products to these hospitals, healthcare. So it is not that you have to understand how a MRI machine works or a CT machine works, but at least you should have certain technical proficiency to understand what does a city machine do? How your machine is different from other competitors' machines, right? So that kind of competencies is required. Whether as a company you have those kind of competencies. Exogenous factors. There will be always certain additional factors which is not in your control, which will force you to choose a target segment. Like COVID happened, right? Travel is restricted, your sales people cannot move around. So at that point of time, you will focus on the local market. You will wait for the situation to get better, right? Sometimes there are factors, maybe political, cultural, or economical, or this kind of pandemic act of nature, which will tie your hand to like kind of select certain segments, right? Cost, how much effort you have to put to get to those kind of segment, right? Let's say your market or your company is basically eastern part of India, right? Now you want to venture out to other parts of India. How much cost or effort? Because you have to put a sales office, your sales people need to travel a lot many times to have discussions, have negotiations, right? Whether you are ready for that, right? Accessibility, right? Whether that market segment is accessible to you, right? Sometimes some companies like government companies will have a rule before selling a product to you, a product to a government company, at least you should have a 5-year experience in that market, 7-year experience, right? If you are a new startup, obviously that market is not accessible to you. You need at least 5 years of experience of selling those products or services. Competition, how many competition are there in that segment? If already that market is mature, so many competitors in that segment, you should think about twice before entering that market, entering that targeting that segment. If you understand that many laptop vendors are targeting those northern universities, then you might decide, "Arey, already so much competition is there. I should probably I should look into some other market because so many competition, my lose ratio will be high." Then portfolio management, right? So that is again important point, right? Uh, you cannot win all the market. You cannot have products for all the market, right? Now you have to decide. Think about Maruti, right? Think about Toyota, think about Honda, or think about laptop manufacturers. Any company who are selling their product to different companies, different individuals. They cannot create product or services which will cater to every individual, right? At certain point, they have to decide, okay, my product or my services will cater to these kind of organizations only, right? So this electric, like if I'm selling those batteries, right? So my portfolio will belong to those car makers who are actually interested in kind of launching their electric cars, right? Maruti might be one big potential market for me, potential organization for me. But if I understand that for the next 3 years, they do not plan to launch any electric cars, or their CEO or MD are not much interested in future of these electric cars, then though they have a 50 to 70% of market share, I'll look into balance other car makers, right? So that is how you have to manage your portfolio of segments, right? Out of 10 segments or 5 segments, you have to select 1 or 2 segments which is profitable to you with low cost. They are accessible to you. They respond to your marketing or sales program. You have right competencies to sell in that market. Exogenous factors again can change those segments. Then obviously competition should be less, right? Because if already there is a huge competition, getting into that market is foolish. Any questions on this? Any of the factor if you are not clear? So what are the segment steps in creating a segmentation plan? MR is marketing research. Then you do that segmentation process and selecting target segments. Then you decide on your marketing mix, right? 4 P's. In services, it is 7 P's. Product, price, promotion, place, right? Then execution, then follow up. After executing your marketing mix or marketing plan, right? Then you see that whether you got a good result or not, whether your segmenting STP process work properly or not, right? If there is a failure, then you have to come back and look into your segmentation strategy, your targeting process, right? So well-developed segmentation plan should have these kind of additional questions asked, right? How should the sales force be organized? Like I said, if your offices are in eastern part of India and you want to venture out into other parts of India, where should have your sales force, right? Where should your sales offices should be? What product or services will the new segment require? Do the existing product, do the existing portfolio product what you have cater the needs of all the other segment, or do you need to innovate something new? Do you have to create a new product or service, right? Laptop vendors right now for the last 2 years, nobody thought about the laptop webcam because nobody used to use that much of webcams, right? Last 2 years, lot of investments is getting into bettering out or improving the webcams in laptops. Otherwise, most of the times, just think about it. Your mobile phone have a front end camera of 5 megapixel, 13 megapixel. Laptop you are paying 50 to 70 or much more than that. They still have that 1.3 megapixel camera, right? Because for the last 5 to 10 years, the requirement of having a laptop webcam was not that essential. But right now, there is a challenge. Lot many students, lot of many universities are getting into online education. You need a better webcam, right? So you need to have that kind of additional innovation, improving your webcam or improving the laptop webcams. Who will provide the new product or services? Which region or which location will provide those product or services? How do we contact the new segment? Is the new segment is accessible to you, right? If there is a very potential segment, but they have a condition, your company should have at least 3 years of experience of selling that product or service, and you are a startup. So that you will not able to contact, you will not have access to that segment. Can you support the new operation, right? That is a big challenge, right? And most of the organizations fails due to that. They realize that okay, there is a market potential, let's get into that without discussing with the plant managers, without getting into manufacturing managers or the plant directors into that discussion. Do you have that much potential? Do you have that much investment into production plant to produce that many laptops, right? Right now, let's say laptop vendor is targeting all the public universities or private universities. Now they decide there is a potential of selling these laptops into public universities. Now they have 5 years of experience or 7 years of experience. But do you have a manufacturing plant which can handle producing or assembling that many laptops in a year? If you get those orders, will you be able to supply those orders on time? Without that, if you're jumping into that market, that will be a foolish thing to do, right? Will the new adaptations be necessary to serve the international market? Sometimes for this kind of product, which will be utilized in international markets, if like we design this kind of electric systems, right? Whatever like frequency we use in India, right? In USA, that is a different frequency of electricity, right? There is a difference 50 hertz and 60 hertz, right? All the electronic appliances, whatever we are manufacturing in India, that cannot be directly sold into US and Europe market. You need certain changes so that that same product can be utilized in USA and India. If your mobile phone, right? If you go to USA and Europe, the charging points will be different. Your phone charger cannot charge your phone there. So you have to take a separate charging device, right? So that is adaptations, right? If you are selling to USA market or Europe market, same phone, you have to provide different chargers. Same chargers which are being sold in India cannot be utilized there, right? Other way around also, right? So that is something again you have to keep in mind. So that's all for today. Any questions on this? So if not, I'll stop here. I'll send across the slides. So there is a class assignment regarding segmentation process. So you have to complete that in your group, project group. I think you have, I think after Monday, I guess, Monday evening. I have provided a Excel sheet, provide those segmentation criteria which will use there, and why did you choose that segmentation, right? And how you are going to use that, right? Complete that assignment and upload in the Google Classroom. one person from the group. Okay. If there are no more questions, I'll stop here. Take care. We'll meet in the
By
next class.
Monday, some Monday.
Excuse me, sir.
EOD deadline.
Yeah, Monday evening.
Some Monday will be deadline. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I missed my attendance.
What is roll number?
It's 202. 202, Rishabh.
Even I missed my attendance.
Roll number?
286.
286. Okay. Anyone else?
Am I present, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you,
Chalo.
sir.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.